You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 138, and it is another Friday episode. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. With me co-hosting, as usual, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess on Instagram. Today we have another special guest interview. His name is Greg Poole, and he's a longtime collector. But what makes him stand out is that he's been buying and selling sports cards for over 20 years now. Longer than that, but over 20 years, where he gives pretty much 100% of his sales back to the community, helping students, seniors, and low-income families with basic supplies and needs.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. We'll get into his story in just a minute, and it's worth waiting for, so stick around. But off the top, I wanted to start by taking the opportunity to read some listener questions and see if we could answer them or help them as best we can. All right, so the first one is from Sleepy in Seattle. I know he's written to the show before, and he has another question for us. And the question is, would buying a Shohei rookie card now at this current time be at peak value, right? And if so, how much room for growth can one reasonably expect on his cards? Very good question.
That is a very good question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and there's a part 2 to this question, but let's answer this one first.
Oh man, it's a loaded question in my opinion, because obviously the answer is, you're buying FOMO right now.
Yes.
And then part of you is saying, what happens if Shohei keeps on doing more incredible things?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's, I think, the original line of thought that most people have, but obviously we talked about this in previous episodes. Autos are like highly sought after. So there's a huge influx of price, in my opinion, like super, super expensive, to be buying Ohtani right now. But I will say this, with other subsets and other second tier cards, I still think there are some opportunities with Shohei in certain areas, whether it's like paper parallels, I think they're still underpriced, or maybe not as inflated as the autos, or even like, Topps Heritage, like the black refractors, they won't even sell for the listed price. They've been up there for months. And,
right.
Previous cards like Soto, Acuna cards, those were really sought after cards. The black refractors and Topps Heritage Chrome. But in Ohtani's, it seems like what's really pushing the needle is kind of like the lower end stuff, like the refractors and then the X-fractors, and then kind of like the autos. So I think even though it's still in the midst of, buying high, I think if you do have that FOMO, I think there are some smarter opportunities than I guess buying at the peak. So I will say that, because I'm always looking for Ohtani even at peak, because my train of thinking is, well, it doesn't seem like he's going to stop anytime soon, and he's doing more and more ridiculous things. So when is the time to buy? Obviously, off season is the right answer, but if you have the itch right now, there might be some play, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. John, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple answer for me. It's definitely peak hype. I mean, we all know sort of the early season, preseason is the big time, right? We all have to assume there'll be some sort of lull post All-Star. I think that's sort of the month where prices start to lull. And that was the case when Shohei started rocking up the charts. Was it last year, 2 years ago? And he went in the home run contest, and after that, prices start to settle. So there will be sort of like a mid-season, still fairly inflated price, but certainly less than current, because currently he's sort of on this MVP / Cy Young pace at the same time. Like, it's incredible. Yeah. And obviously, the upside to this is a quote unquote peak hype is if he continues this and ends up winning both awards at the end, you know, you could probably assume that there will be no stop. Like the price will keep going up. But the odds of that, if we're going to play odds, you know, Shohei could do it, but that's tough to keep up for the entire season. So yeah, peak hype. Definitely if you're in, if you're in to buy something, it should be in the off season. But I understand what Hyung is saying, because for myself personally, I'm trying to find, not that I would pull the trigger right now because I don't have the spend, but I'm personally trying to, I just always look out for like a Shohei rookie red ink, right?
Yeah.
The real one autos. And I let you guys know, like a BGS 9 or a BGS 8.5 not too long ago went for like 4,100 or something like that, which was like pretty affordable.
That's reasonable.
Very reasonable.
Yeah.
But that was
still high.
That was auction. Like usually people don't run auctions on these red inks, right?
Yeah, true.
And then if you look now, I think there's maybe like 3 to 5 of them, and like raws are like $8,000, asking is $8,000. You know, BGS 9.5 asking is like $14,000 or something crazy, right? So
Yeah.
I get what Hyung is saying. Sometimes that rare card that just doesn't pop up, let's say that just doesn't come out.
For example,
auction.
I'll give you a perfect one, John. There was a guy who sold, I believe, an Otani foil board. We talk about the foil board parallel. So number 700, so the white jersey, and he was selling for like $1,600 PSA 10, and it's super low pop. So, which is really reasonable in my opinion, but those are the paper. But then you look at X Fractors and stuff like that, way higher pop. They're going through the moon, right? So,
right. Yeah, and I just saw a Shohei red jersey vintage, number 999, and the guy was selling it. I think it was like BGS 9.5, and he was selling it for $1,400.
Yeah. So there's reasonable price.
Seems like a reasonable price. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, no, good points, guys. I mean, for me, I'm always a Bowman Chrome first auto, and you know, when you're looking at those cards, that's a FOMO buy. Like I'm always looking at it though, and I'm, you know, resisting so far. And then, you know, like I check the stats every day, and then what you were saying, John's like, is he gonna win the Cy Young and MVP this year? and then it's too late. It's too late at that point, right? Yeah. But I mean, that's the definition of FOMO when you think you're gonna miss out on something spectacular like that. So I'm personally staying away, although I have a bunch of Shohei cards on my watch list. Is just wishful thinking, you know, maybe it'll drop. And, you know, the only thing that could potentially happen this season in the short term is that the Angels will continue to be a 500 team. You know, they won't make the playoffs, or they'll barely make the wild card and they'll get out. and then, you know, maybe there's an opportunity there. It just looks like the Angels are trending that way once again, right?
Nothing new under the sun.
Which is disappointing, yeah, with Trout and Otani on that team. But so yeah, I'm looking for that. Part B of this question, it's interesting you bring up the plays you can make with the different parallels. But his question, I'm going to paraphrase, is: will the high number of different rookie cards, including the different parallels, will most of those Shohei rookie cards plummet in value if the hype dies down?
I think so, absolutely. I think there's a lot of rookie cards, including, you know, his white jersey, red jersey. That's the first thing, and you could see it reflected on pricing. Even parallels are a lot cheaper than Acuna and Soto still in terms of, you know, value. Autos, like I said, are inflated. They're the ones that are mostly in desired, and but going back to the point, I think there's, you know, parallels that are not as rare that are super expensive too. Like, you know what I mean? Way too expensive, like refractors and, you know, prisms and all those sepias, kind of like the higher pop counts. I think those will be the first to go and always feel it. That's why I always like buying at a reasonable price on a numbered card, because I don't think you're going to really, you know, lose out on that volatility as much, and you just keep the card for longer cycles, right? So I like the move of, you know, just numbered parallels in general for that protection, if the market goes the other way.
Okay. Right. I think plummet is probably the wrong word. I'm sure he was saying it for a certain effect, but the price will probably crash. I mean, Shohei is building his career, and he's clearly convincing fans, investors, whatever, that he's the real deal, real deal. He's not going to get injured. Like everything is going to go well. And if he stays uninjured, he is a perennial MVP candidate. He could have a very average season and he'll still probably be in the MVP conversation in some semblance, right? So his floor is starting to creep up, I think, in my personal opinion, right? So would his card plummet? Probably not. But would it correct from, the bump it's seen in the last 2 months? I don't know how much Shohei cards have gone up, 75% or 40% or whatever. Would that correct down to a 20% increase since the beginning, the middle of last off season? Yeah, I could see that. I could see like a correction rather than a plummet. So
sure.
Yeah.
I guess to be fair, I don't know if plummet was his word or my word when I was paraphrasing, but I think I get his point where the modern cards these days have, there's so many rookie cards that are available. So I would, you got to do your own research in a sense, right? Like which rookie cards do you think are valued by collectors over the mid to long term? All of them might be trending upwards when he's doing ridiculous things, but some of those cards, especially the lower to mid end parallels and rookie cards, they will lose pretty much all their value when when the hype dies down a bit.
Right.
So you got to be careful with that, the low to mid end. But at the end of the day, you do your research and we always say this: collect what you love. You like the look and appeal of the card, even if it does plummet, you have it and it's yours, right? So you can't lose that way. But I get it as an investor. You got to kind of do your own research to see like, what seems to be selling, what seems to be liquid, even at the lower to mid end of the market. So I guess that would be my advice.
And I always think that there's plays outside of rookie year cards. There's proof in the past. Look at Trout's cards. Look at what's valuable in terms of older Trout cards that aren't rookie years. You could extrapolate the data and kind of do the same kind of like forecast for Ohtani in his second year. Maybe it's a Topps Chrome Rookie Cup Gold or an orange auto or whatever it may be. I think there might be extreme value or potential value in terms of increasing it from an investment standpoint.
That's true. I agree. All right, Sleepy in Seattle, thanks for that question. Appreciate it as always. This next one's from Josh Clapham. I think we answered one of his questions in a previous episode, but this is kind of a fun one, I think. He asks, would you crack a 1 of 1 and resubmit it knowing it will make the card a pop 2?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
First, I don't think I would crack and resubmit a 1 of 1 to the same company.
Right.
So I've done it before where I had a Max Verstappen 1 of 1 in a BGS slab and I went into a PSA slab. Right. Yeah. So to me, it was like, that made sense, but I would never regrade a 1 of 1 at the same grading company because they already know what they've graded. Like you're rarely going to, get the bump. They're basically saying, you know what, we screwed up the first time, so we got you.
Yeah.
Or
out of spite, they give you a lower grade.
Exactly. And that's happened. I've seen it done to somebody on Facebook recently, actually, with BGS. They got their grade downgraded.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that's a pretty simple one because I was thinking about this, and you made my point already that if you do resubmit it to the same grading company, don't expect to get a better grade because they know what they graded. Yeah. So, all right. Last question from Kenny Tomek, a friend of the podcast. He asked, "What are our general thoughts on getting the PSA auto grade? Is it worth it?"
John, you can go for this one.
I know what Young's gonna say. Yeah, short answer for me, yes, it's worth it. If you're gonna authenticate your card and just grade the auto, I mean, first of all, make sure none of us are pros, but with your naked eye, make sure the auto looks like it's gonna hit a 10, like no streaks, very like solid ink or whatever you have to look at, because I think if you get that PSA 9, that's going to kill you. So make sure the grade is a 10. If you think it's a 10, is it worth it to authenticate and just have the grade 10? I think so, because there is a visual appeal of seeing that number 10, even though it's nothing to do with the card. I think psychologically it still helps make the appeal of the card pop a lot better. And I'll let Hyung, I'll save it for Hyung, but we have obviously a friend who submitted with a similar idea, and I think it makes the card look a lot better seeing that number 10. So,
the
John,
yeah,
the Otani, yeah. But John, I mean, I don't think he just meant like the card is authenticated, but just say the card itself has a PSA 10.
So
would you try to get?
Oh, would
get
you just?
10-10?
Oh, would you generally get 10-10?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Would you do that?
Yeah, like it's an absolute yes for me if you look at the auto and it looks like it's going to be a 10. But it's a tough call because Hyung, you've had. I remember you sent in a couple of Bowman Chrome first, and it was like a perfect auto, and you didn't get the 10.
I've done it before. I've gotten a 9 before.
The 9 is killer though on the auto, man.
Brutal.
I personally hate seeing 9s.
I had a 10 Gemmint 10 Tatis and auto 9. Right,
Mm-hmm.
That auto 9 bugged me. It wasn't even auto. It was one of the cleaner autos too. But then I tried cracking it because I wanted authentic auto.
Yeah.
At that point, right? Because it was a IP auto, and then they gave me a 9 authentic auto out of a 10-9 slab. But then that's when that was my light bulb point when I realized, my love for PSA. That was in the midst of that hype. Yeah, I was it doesn't make sense. Anything doesn't make sense. But I will say this: most people who receive a non-auto grade, they submit it in bulk, usually $30 submissions, right? So let's just say you submit a Bowman Chrome, you get a PSA 10, and basically that was $30. So a lot of people know that like single grades, they don't hold as much value. Like if it's a dual auto grade, you'd have to actually submit it yourself, or at least an upgraded service. The seller usually, if it's a 1010, they're going to charge a premium for it because it's a lower pop. Not more people are doing it because it costs more. There's a lot more gamble to it because now you're paying like $70 instead of $30 or whatever it costs for a dual grade, and then you're not doing it in like any sort of bulk submission, right? So I think there's a premium to it. I usually, like John said, just really inspect the auto, make sure it's a 10, and if it has a chance to grade well as well. I don't necessarily like auto 9 or sorry, a PSA 9 auto 10, but it is better than a just straight up PSA 9 slab in my opinion, especially if it's a meaningful card in Bowman. Let's just say it's like an orange of like a Drew Jones or whatever, and then it doesn't 10. You want the 10-10 obvious, but a 9-10 I think is just as good on that card, on that specific card, right? So it's all dependent on the type of card too. When I do a dual auto grade, so yeah.
You know what? To me, it's generally, and I think I messaged Kenny back directly, but generally it's not worth it for me, especially if it's already in a PSA 10 slab. Like it's not worth it to go through the extra hassle and then take the gamble essentially, right? That it wouldn't come back at 10, even if you think it's a clean auto. Like Hyung is a testament to that. Right. And like if you look at the price comps, like you got to look at each card individually, right? Like some 1010s, dual 1010s that have actually sold, like it's not a huge bump, and whereas other cards there are a huge bump. Like it there's no like ratio that's common from PSA 10 to dual 1010s. Right. It really depends on the card. So do your research. If it's like a small bump in value, then obviously it's not worth it. Yeah. But if you see that, oh wow, like there's a dual 1010 of this card and it's consistently at a 2x value, then maybe it's worth it.
I think it usually like the higher end Bowman Chromes is where the value really lies with the dual auto. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think we're all in agreement that if you get an auto 9, it destroys the value.
Yeah.
Like that's the ugliest thing to see on the slab.
I think there are examples, and these are more on the high end. There are examples where, in my opinion, the auto grade doesn't matter at all, period. And one extreme example is if you hit like a Logo Man auto in a flawless box. Like people on the high end scale for those cards, It'd be great if you submitted it and you got like a PSA 9 or pretty good actual grade for the card. But on those types of cards, people literally don't care if the auto's a 9 or an auto's a 10. So in those instances, yeah, I think there are instances where it's not worth it at all. But if it, like Clark, you're kind of saying, if it is something that's more liquid, like a card that we kind of spoke on this last week, that Neo Cards and Comics was saying, like end user, if it's a card that's just gonna, go around the musical chairs, like a Bowman First Chrome of like a pretty high prospect, that's where a 1010 would come into play and just keep you take those profits, right? So,
Yep,
yeah.
Agreed. All right. Well, we always appreciate the questions, and if you have one yourself, follow this podcast on Instagram. We have our account. It's at Cards to the Moon, all one word, and you could just DM your question there. We'll take a read, and hopefully we'll address it in a future episode. All right, let's play the interview now with Greg Poole. After listening to what he's been involved with, and if you want to help out, we will put a link to his website in our show notes below. All right, enjoy the interview. With me today on the podcast is Greg Poole, who is the founder of Cans Can Ministries based in Southern Illinois, which he began in the early 2000s. And we'll get into how it all started, but what's cool about Cans Can Ministries is that it's a nonprofit organization which is funded primarily by the sales from Greg's own sports card collection and memorabilia. And 100% of those sales goes directly to helping local schools by donating computers and school supplies, as well as helping assisted living centers by donating things like free beds, bedding, and clothes, just to name a few items. We definitely need more good news hobby stories like this. So without further ado, Greg, thanks for coming onto the pod today to share your story.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's start from the beginning. Even before you began Cans Can Ministries, when did you first get into sports cards?
As soon as I could ask for something at the store. When my mom and dad used to take us anywhere, my sister always wanted candy. And I guess to pacify me, they always asked what I wanted. And I guess I never liked candy that much. And so I would always get cards. So from the age of probably 4 on,
Wow.
Those are probably still up in my parents' attic. So getting weaned on the 88 Donruss, 88
Right.
Tops, and then, never stopped.
Yeah. I think a lot of people we interview on the show we're in that similar age range between 35 to 45. So we definitely grew up in the junk wax era. So I'm guessing you don't have a lot of valuable cards from when you collected as kids either.
No. The 86 Donruss Jose Canseco isn't going to pay for my next,
Right.
my kid's college education like I thought it was.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking for the 87 Will Clark in bulk anymore. But yeah, it's definitely memories, but the value isn't what you would think it would be, or what I thought it was going to be.
Sure. Well, I mean, 86 Donruss Canseco is one of my favorite cards, so definitely have memories.
Yeah,
on
that was when I was in grade school. That was a real status symbol. If you had the 86
Right.
Canseco, man, your collection was top notch.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now from your love of sports cards at an early age, how did you come up with the idea to start Cans Can Ministries?
Yeah, so growing up, I had some pretty traumatic events, and had real issues with depression, PTSD, and really, so by about 16, well, not about 16, at 16, I decided that I was going to commit suicide, and obviously I failed in that attempt. But one of the things that I did before, as my final act, was we had done Meals on Wheels through high school through our student chamber. And so I went and I grabbed a couple 5,000 count boxes out of my room, went to some buddies, went to some local card shops, and sold what I could. And I went back to all the people that we had on our Meals on Wheels route and just dropped off food for them.
Right.
Told them all bye, and tried to do what I tried to do. Failed, obviously, and got back in my truck and looked around and saw that I had these boxes left and thought, man, I guess I'm here for something. So really, since the age of 16, which is beginning to be farther and farther and farther away. So it'd be 23 years this October. We've officially or unofficially started, and honestly, we've grown leaps and bounds. I think our first actual project was we bought an elderly person a set of tires.
Okay.
And so, that was just the first thing that we did after I formally started, or informally
Sure.
started, I guess. And then we have just really grown. We started in schools with some local classrooms.
Yeah.
We've really, so our coverage area school-wise is 120 miles north and south, 130 miles east to west. So
Wow.
we cover the bottom half of the state of Illinois.
Amazing.
And then river to river.
Yeah.
So at last count, we're over 370 classrooms in 67 school districts.
Amazing.
So that was our bread and butter. Yeah, that was our bread and butter for a while. COVID really brought the need, or the attention to the need, for seniors in our community. A lot of them were shut-ins, and a lot of them, a lot of their caretakers weren't able to get out as well because they were in that vulnerable age. And so we had a lot of people contacting us that they weren't able to get food, they weren't able to get supplies, they weren't able to get toiletries. And so initially, we partnered with a lot of local restaurants and we started having them deliver food. Because they weren't open, they were only able to do delivery.
Right.
So that really worked out well for both of us. Once COVID's ended, or once it lightened up and restaurants were able to reopen, they stopped delivering. And so actually we prepare the meals now twice a week, and we deliver them ourselves. And then we do assisted living facilities, same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of them they're on extremely fixed incomes, and so we go in usually monthly, and we do what we call a free market. We'll give away anything from toilet paper to deodorant, denture cleaner, whatever they need.
Sure.
We do fun activities with them. We don't usually, for the past 4 years, we've given them a Christmas list. They're allowed to ask for anything that they want. And really, whatever they put down, we get. I mean, sometimes they ask for TVs, but we get them TVs. They don't have a TV.
Wow.
Some people, we had one. I mean, some just want a pizza. One guy asked for a pepperoni pizza.
Okay.
And so instead of just getting him a pizza, we decided to have a pizza party for the whole
Awesome.
Residential area.
Yeah.
We do a lot with that. We do foster care work. Social workers will contact us and say, "Hey, this kid's been removed from the home. They need beds, they need clothes, they need shoes," and then we'll buy and take it to them. Actually, that's what I'm kind of multitasking here. I'm following a UPS truck that's actually delivering beds now to a home in Illinois.
Okay.
So we're always doing that stuff. I mean, honestly, our unofficial motto is, "Yeah, we'll do that." So in our area, the social work or social care is kind of limited. And so we really don't pin ourselves down to one particular segment of the population.
Yeah.
I've always said, if you need help and you ask for help, we're gonna get you help.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And so that's like the last 23 years, and in 25 seconds.
Right.
But yeah, so you did mention before, so about 70. I calculated it the other day. Just under 78% of our funding comes from our card shop.
Is that right? Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just curious how it's an incredible story how it began, and just over the 2 decades of hard work and labor. And was it an incremental thing, or how did it become where it is now?
So honestly, for a long time it was incremental, because really I had no idea what I was doing, and honestly I still really don't know what I'm doing. A lot of days we fly by the seat of their pants. So I don't have a social work degree. I'm not technically, I have a business management degree. So we kind of just do things. So for a long time it was incremental, and really in the last probably 10, 12 years, it's just, I don't want to say spun out of control, because that makes it sound like, but it's really blown up in the last 12 years. And we've just expanded. And like I said, cards has been the reason that we've been able to do that.
Yeah.
And even during COVID, it boomed for us, like it did everybody in the business.
Right.
Which was a complete and total godsend, because there were just so many more needs, that when we initially started getting these requests, I thought, holy cow, there's no way we can keep up. And then we started putting stuff online that we're selling for prices that I couldn't really even dream of.
Right.
And I was absolutely happy to sell them.
Sure.
Um, there were the best story I have is we had a Russell Wilson, and I don't remember if it was a Topps Chrome or a Prism, but we had a rookie variation refractor. And literally in my books, I was going back through. I bought it for $250, like I don't know, and whenever his rookie year was, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I had it in our showcase. I had it in our showcase for $6. Couldn't sell it for 2 years. I put it up in a box. I looked online, and there were some that were selling for like $300 or $400, and I thought, hey,
Wow.
absolutely, we'll bust it out.
Yeah.
And it ended up selling for like $9.96, I think was the price on
Oh
that.
my.
So like it really like everything kind of spun out of control together, and so it really worked. So it really worked out well for us.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, like I said, in the last 12 years, we've really just picked up, like I said, the foster care, the seniors, not just the classrooms. Our goal, especially with the classrooms and the social workers, is we want to be able to empower the people that make the changes. Like we can't make changes individually. With 360 classrooms, the average classroom size in this part of our state's 30-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're talking 10,000 kids. We couldn't get to those 10,000 kids.
Right.
So we'd rather get to the teachers that make that day-to-day impact and give them the things that they need to do what they do.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And it's funny how things turn out when the pandemic started. All the businesses shut down, but then of course the hobby just exploded. Along with that, the needs of people exploded, and it kind of worked together, I guess, for you, just to be able to make that money and use that money to help others, right?
And it really did. And what really scared us is so when we moved into so for a long time, for a lot of times, for the first 15, 20 years, we did shows,
Mm-hmm.
we did online sales. So we never really had that physical store. So we actually signed the lease on our HQ. It's a lot of different things. So we just call it the HQ.
Yep.
In March of 2020. So on March 7th, I believe, I don't have the exact date, but 1st of March, we signed the lease. And then March 22nd, in Illinois, they signed it was every quarantine.
Right.
So 15 days after we
Jeez.
opened, we couldn't be opened. And so it
My
was
goodness.
like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like, what are we? So yeah, like I said, online really went crazy, and that was to our benefit to the extreme.
Yeah. Well, when you first said you had you got the Russell Wilson for $250, I thought you were talking about $250, but you're talking about $2.50.
Literally, I spent $2.50 on it. So $994 profit is not a bad thing.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That just shows you how insane the hobby hype was over the last couple of years. But yeah.
And honestly, after I sold that, I think a month later, the comps went all the way back down to like 120, and now I think it's like back in the $30 or $40 range.
Such a
crazy.
roller coaster. Yeah. You talked about your store actually that you opened up. You technically opened up 3 years ago, and then the pandemic hit. But is it up and running now? I guess everything's starting to open up.
Oh yeah. So we are up and running.
Yeah.
This is not my job, so nobody gets paid to do anything with us. I don't get paid, so we're open on the weekends. I'm an IT manager by trade.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we're open the weekends. We do open if we get a call from a foster parent. We do kind of some emergency opens.
Right.
But yeah, so usually every Saturday, Sunday through the year, and then the summers are different for me since I'm off. I'm in education, IT and education, so we do open up a little more in the summer.
Okay.
We do open up. We do trade nights with kids. We do allow the foster parents that we serve to come in during some evenings, and they can shop by themselves. And within reason, we usually just let them take whatever that they want for free.
Cool.
So yeah.
And you mentioned it's not a full-time thing for you, but is the shop, so the people that help out, are they all volunteers as well?
Everybody's a volunteer. Yeah, nobody gets paid. So about 96.4 cents of every dollar goes 100%. 100% of 96% for. I sound like that, but 96.4 cents of every dollar we raise goes back into the programs.
Right.
The other 5.5 cents goes into rent.
Makes sense.
But yeah, we don't even do reimbursements. If people drive meals, they drive it on their own dime. So yeah, we, like I said, what little doesn't go back into actually serving people, it goes into our rent, our electricity, things like that.
No, that's awesome, and I imagine the reception in your community has it been growing in terms of people knowing about what you guys are doing there?
It has been growing. Yeah, so let me try to think how to say this. It's definitely a give and take. So the more people that find out what we do,
Right.
we have a lot more we have a lot more state agencies calling us now for help than have been
Huh.
before. So it's kind of we try to bring that up together. So the more that know what we do, we try to get more into the shop.
Right.
It's always that weighted scale that you have to balance.
Sure. Sure. I'm curious how you keep things afloat. I know there's a lot of work involved, but with the sports cards being a big part of where the funding comes from, so is it essentially you buy and sell on your own, and the profits go towards the programs that you're running through CanScan?
Yeah, yeah. So everything that we have available in our shop is from my own personal collection. So yeah, we're
Mm,
constantly. Well, I say I'm constantly buying, constantly trading, constantly trying to keep inventory up.
yeah.
It's not been too bad. I mean, the only part that's hard is you really can't hold on to things sometimes to reach peak value. Because I just mentioned the beds earlier. We
Right.
had been kind of hoarding some Jokic and some Murray and some Porter Juniors and some rookies and those guys. And really, I mean, peak value you would assume is coming in the next week or two.
Yeah.
But we just had needs come up. They were our quickest access to the amount of money that we needed to help these kids. So we sold them. So sometimes you can't reach peak value, but I mean it's not too bad.
Yeah, yeah. No, it can be tricky sometimes for sure. I'm just also curious, like, how do you find the time to do this? Like, I do hobby content, and I have two young kids, but just to know what you're doing, it doesn't even compare to what I'm trying to handle on my own.
Yeah, so I don't sleep much, which is fine. But
Okay.
also, my kids and my family definitely help out a
Yeah.
bunch. My kids are constantly we've made them a room up at our shop. My daughter likes Pokemon, so she's got her own
Mm-hmm.
case where she does what I do, but she does it with Pokemon cards.
Nice.
My son, we laugh, is our unofficial greeter. He likes to shake hands and hug everybody that comes in.
Awesome.
So yeah, so a lot of time that we do this, we're together as a family. So it's not me just doing it on my own. It's not me being away from my family. So
Mm.
a lot of late nights and then a lot of hauling a 5 and an 8-year-old up to hug old people. My daughter calls them their old people friends.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. So they like to come up there. So
Yeah.
it can be, that could probably, that's the hardest part maybe is finding times.
Yeah, for sure.
Because a good day at the shop means that the cases are empty and there needs to be things in there. So
Yeah.
it means probably staying up a little bit later on message boards on eBay trying to find things to put back in the shelves.
Nice, nice. Yeah, great to hear. And you already mentioned a few programs that you run. I think the Teacher Resource Center, that's housed in the shop as well, where teachers can come in
Yeah.
and
So
take
in the
supplies.
back part, yeah. So in the front part of our shop is our shop. I say the front part of our building is the shop.
Right.
In the back part, we call it the Teacher Resource Center. So we have 3 rooms set up that are with shelves. We carry everything from backpacks to clothes
Mm-hmm.
to pencils, really anything a teacher needs for a classroom.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to come in and shop free of charge. Same with foster parents, same with social workers. We have a room that has diapers and bedding, um, deodorant, shampoo. I'm just trying to
Mm.
think off the top of my head, but anything that they may need, they're allowed to come in. The only thing we ask from them is they just sign their name and the school district that they're from,
Right.
and they can take what they need for their classroom, for their foster kids, for whoever they're serving. So that's in the back part of our shop. So they have to walk through the front to the card area to get to that part. But yeah, so we run. I think we've officially changed it to the resource center. I mean,
Okay.
if you want to get specific, my daughter says, "Dad, they're not just teachers
It's
anymore."
true. It's true.
So you can't call it teacher resource center, Dad. That person's not a teacher. So she just renamed it the resource
Yes.
center. So yeah, we do that. We have a spot in the back where we keep the things for our elderly, for our senior citizens,
Okay.
the denture cleaners, diapers, things like that don't necessarily fit with the teachers. But
Sure.
yeah, we try to keep it fully stocked. That itself can be another full-time job.
Mm.
Depending on the day or the weekend, we can host up to as many as 50 to 60 teachers. Average teacher leaves with about $200 worth of items.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that can get challenging at times too. But like I said, we're still here. Sometimes it's by the skin of our teeth, but like I said, as long as we keep going, we keep getting stories like the Russell Wilson card. I mean, um, a lot of I'm a cheap autograph hog, and so
Mm,
a lot of sometimes I'll hit on somebody that I got an autograph box that I paid $1 for. I'm able to sell for a lot more. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, I was going to ask you about that because when the hobby was booming, it was a lot. Things were a lot easier in terms of flipping. But I guess it's a bit trickier now, even for every collector and investor in the game still, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, right in COVID, you could literally sell anything. I
Right.
mean, I was amazed, and I just kept thinking it can't be this good forever. And I guess we were right. But
Mm.
man, while it was good, the it was good,
Yeah, it was.
and yeah, and we kind of served a different need in that we had a lot of retail flippers in our area, and
Okay.
not that there wasn't not that there's anything wrong with that, but we had a lot of kids that were coming, or a lot of parents messaging us saying like, hey, we can't, once they were able to get back out into the WalMarts, they're like, we can't find this for our
Right. Right.
kids, and so we would put together boxes for them, and give them some pages and some binders and things, just to keep the kids interested in the hobby. So I think at last count, we've given away somewhere in the 5 million range,
Wow.
5 million cards, Pokemon sports cards.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, we go through a lot of inventory.
Yeah. I was going to ask you because I think I read on your website you did a sports card giveaway program. Do you guys still do that or?
We do that. So we are in our local. We're in a couple local libraries where a kid checks out a book, and if they turn in just a short few sentence paper on what the book was about, they'll get a pack of
Yeah.
cards. We'll do it with teachers, very similar with teachers. If the kids read a book or whatever kind of reward. Some of them do it for academic. Some of them do it for like social. Like, hey, if you
Mm-hmm.
don't talk this week to your neighbor. So we do a lot
Right.
with that. I'll spit it out here. Local sheriff's departments will take
Mm-hmm.
them to domestic calls, take it on like the DARE program, that kind of things. So yeah, we pretty much saturated the community. We get a lot of requests for those.
Sure.
It's crazy, and it's good. It's good. I'm glad that kids are still into those kind of
Yeah.
things. But yeah, we get a lot of requests from a lot of different places. Like I said, schools. Um, we'll usually, if we'll do, if a kid gets removed, we'll do a backpack, and we'll put underwear, change of underwear, change of socks, and we'll usually
Mm.
we'll ask them if they like Pokemon basketball, and we'll usually slip a couple packs of cards in
Yeah.
there for them too. So
Very cool.
yeah, we constantly giving away stuff.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that because in the hobby we always talk about how do we get the kids more involved, and what you're doing seems to be a great thing. And if we want the hobby to grow, we need the kids to be a part of it for sure in the future.
Yeah, the next generation has to be interested,
Yeah.
or when we get older, there's not going to be that next generation to pick up the tab.
Right, for sure, for sure. I'm sure this nonprofit has meant a lot to those benefiting from your generosity, but I'm wondering what has this meant for you personally? When you look at yourself back to when you started at 16, you're going through a dark period of your time, and what it's turned to, and the amount of work you put in. Seems like you still have satisfaction and joy in being part of this ministry. What has it meant to you?
Yeah, so when growing up in kind of the chaos and trauma, like we had a local card shop the next town over
Mm-hmm.
called Fielder's Choice. It was kind of like my sanctuary. That was kind of that quiet place where you can kind of
Mm.
reconfigure your brain, and so it feels good. I mean, it feels good for me that I can recreate that for other people. I mean, and it's not with our reach, it's not necessarily the people that come in the shop. And we always encourage like kids to come in, like and ask a million questions. Like if you, I
Cool.
mean, there's no silly questions. If you want to talk sports, if you want to talk cards, you can talk Pokemon, but you have to talk to my daughter.
Right.
So we want to recreate that environment. Um, we don't want to be that shop that wants your money, and not every shop is, but we don't want to have a few high end things that price kids out of it.
Right.
So to be able to recreate kind of that, like I said, that sanctuary to where people can come in and just, for as long as they're there, they're only just thinking about, baseball cards or basketball cards or
Yeah.
whatever. And then, like I said, now we've kind of created this umbrella where we've brought this sanctuary or whatever you want to say to other people,
Mm.
and just bringing more people into the fold. It's been good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes in 22, 23 years, there are times when you are a little burnt out. There are times I laugh
Sure.
when I'm on eBay and think everything just looks the same. And it's like, I
Right.
don't even want to buy anything right now.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, and, and there's late night calls and that can, initially when you get a call at 2 in the morning, it's not sometimes the most pleasant thing to answer, but
Yeah.
just hear the voice on the other end. The other night we got a call where a grandparent had to take in her three grandsons, because her daughter had passed away, and her husband had to quit work because he had stage 4 neuroblastoma, and she needed a bed. They said that, the state said they couldn't take the kids until they had a bed. And so, that's the stuff that keeps you going, because no matter what, like I said, it's an inconvenience to wake up at 2 in the morning sometimes, but then you get that call and you realize, holy cow, the person on the other end is not only up at 2 in the morning, but they're dealing with something just
Right. Right.
completely worse.
Yeah.
So that keeps you going. And then in the end, like, I mean, I can have a hobby that my wife doesn't care about. I mean, a long time ago, she used to sometimes give me a little flack when packages would come in the mail. And it's probably 5 years ago, a box of WWF replica belts that had been signed came in, and she opened it up, and she looks at me and she goes, "I don't want to know. I don't care." She said, "I know something good is going to come for these," and
Yeah.
she goes, "Just do it."
Amazing.
So, like I said, I can have a hobby. I can bring my family in. My kids love to do it.
Yeah.
And they're just, and it's a learning experience for them too. One of the things that we always try to preach to them is we're going to come across people in all walks of life doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not just going to come across people coming in our shop wanting to spend money. But safety, barring any safety concerns, we generally take them along with us. They deliver meals with us when they can, when they're out of school.
Yeah.
If it's something that we can take them to, we don't take them to like domestic situations or those kind of
Sure.
things. But we're exposing them to life as well. And I mean, we wouldn't have that ability without this shop.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that, and I love your perspective. But yeah, I love this story. Before I let you go, I just had a few more questions that are a little bit more hobby specific.
For sure.
Just wondering, who do you like to collect personally as just a sports car collector?
Yeah, so my personal collection is dwindling. As I've always said, like, everything has a price on it. So
Yeah.
if somebody comes in, I'm going to sell you an item. So growing up, I was always a fan of kind of the oddball guys. So I have a gigantic Greg Olson collection.
Okay.
I have a Greg Olson collection,
Right.
Von Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
and Willie McGee. Trying to think who else. Those were the three main ones growing up, and I have no idea why I started collecting either of the three,
Right.
other than I love, obviously Greg Olson's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I still have those. At the shop, we do have a couple displays that I guess is my personal collection. So we like to keep cards or items from the high schools or the schools that we serve in our area. So we do have items like Doug Collins is from my hometown. Jerry Sloan's from a couple towns over. Those
Oh,
are some of
cool.
the more famous ones.
Yeah.
So if we come across those kind of items, we have a case that's mounted on the wall that we do display items from local high schools, local towns.
Nice.
And then I have a few items. So I went to SIU Carbondale, so I'm a big Missouri Valley Conference fan. So anybody that played in the Valley, we've got a couple Kyle Korver jerseys hanging up,
Okay.
Doug McDermott, so things like that. So I would say, like, my personal collection is great for me.
Yeah.
Maybe not great for the retail value.
Sure. I mean, you could collect as many cards as of those players as you want.
I can go online. I think the other day I purchased, there was a lot of 250 Greg Olson 89 Donruss rookie cards for like $1, and I was like, why not? Why not just give them some more in the 5,000 cards? Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their PC. We know the Nationals in Chicago this summer. I'm not sure how far you guys are from Chicago. Are you guys planning to attend the Nationals this year? Or?
So we're about 6.5 hours south of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So we did. So I did go 2 years ago. that is kind of a dream to be set up at the National. It's one of those things that we really have to weigh the cost
Sure.
of everything versus what, it's really hard sometimes. We do local shows. We do a lot in St. Louis still, but it's hard sometimes to justify $1,000 for a table, $1,000 for a hotel room when you have people calling and saying, I need a bed, and I could buy 10 beds for that. So that would be a long shot dream. We may go up there. There's a train around our area that runs up there. We'll probably go up there to visit and shop. But long term goal is to be at a national.
Yeah, no, that adds up for sure. I thought you'd be closer to Chicago, but 6.5 hours isn't a short ride either.
Yeah, well, a lot of times when we say we're from Illinois, they assume Chicago, Illinois. We're a little south of Chicago, and that's fine.
We're based out of Canada, so yeah, our U.S. geography isn't as great, but I hope you can forgive me.
No problem.
All right, last question. For the people listening to our episode, is there a way for fellow collectors to help or contribute in some way to the good work you're doing through CansCan?
That would be an incredible blessing to us. I mean, just inventory. One of the hardest things for me is to go on Twitter and see people that are like, hey, if it's under $2, I just throw it away, or $3, I just throw it away. Like, we'll take it. We're a 501c3. So if you choose to donate, you can. We are a tax deductible donation. We do take anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be a $1 million card. We just take commons, and those commons go out to kids. If you've got 5,000 count boxes, or even just, team lots laying around that you don't know what to do with, I'd like to encourage you to, that would be huge to us. One of the things we've struggled with, I think, is kind of broadcasting that need out. Any kind of items, we're always looking. Like I said, if it doesn't go in the shop, we give it away. Yeah. And if we can't give it away, we've got a couple life skills classes in the area that I recently bought a couple monster boxes full of 91 Fleer, which is like the ugliest set ever created. Yeah. But the teachers use them for sorting. And so they'll take it out and they'll say, hey, put all the Cardinals in a pile. And so these are kids with intellectual disabilities, and they go through and they do the Cardinals, and then they'll sort them by numbers. And so there's a use for anything that's out there. So, and obviously monetary donations. We have a website. We have a donate link on our website. We do PayPal and Venmo. But, really, like for the hobby, like any kind of items, we're like I said, we'll accept anything. And I'll make my kids sort anything. Don't worry about sending too much. I've got two kids that work for Starburst and beef jerky. So
that's a good deal. That's a good deal. You worked out with your kids.
They're cheap. They're cheap.
Cheap
for now.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, that's awesome. We'll definitely link your website on our show notes, and we have over 1,000 subscribers right now to our podcast. So hopefully there's collectors that want to reach out to you and to help you out. So Greg, thanks for your time again, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.